Good morning everybody and welcome back to another custom set showcase video here on the channel, where today once again we're going back in time. Yes, I know we're continuing with our newer customs based off of newer games, but I've been hard at work trying to remaster one of the first things that we did here on the channel, and that is the first Legend of Zelda CMF series that I designed for the wave 1 of custom sets all the way back in 2020. I believe it came out in 2021 actually, but obviously I designed these things fairly in advance of these videos. So what I thought we'd do is we'd have a quick look at some of the earlier drawings, because I've improved a lot in 4 years, or I like to think so anyway, and I'm going to show you all the upgrades as well as talk through the changes, because minifigure series as a whole have changed a lot since we did this. And firstly, dropping from 16 figures, this was back before we had 12 figure minifigure series, and now into boxes as well. So I've done a couple of different versions of the art, and I'll take you through that as well as the updates for series 2 as well, although those are much more minor. But let's start by going through the 16 characters that came in this series all the way back in Z02. So one of the big things I attempted to do with this CMF series is choose characters that I thought would suit a CMF appearance, meaning that they would be unlikely to appear in other sets. Now obviously, as time's gone on with minifigure series, we've seen that figures do not have to stay exclusive to these series and will appear in other scenarios. So this logic doesn't hold up 100%, however it was mostly a chance to get characters that I don't think could necessarily hold down a set or don't quite fit as well into other scenarios, although some of you may disagree with those choices. And the figure that sort of exemplifies this best, at least to me, is the memory version of Zelda in her research outfit from Breath of the Wild, and she was sort of the figurehead figure for not only Wave 1 but also for this series, because she was one of the better ones that I did back in the day. My Wave 1 lineup was very wonky and full of problems, so she was definitely a standout figure in that regard. And here she is in her updated form now that you've been staring at her old version. Not only has the printing gotten a lot cleaner, the lines are a less shakier, and I've completely changed the program I use in to draw with, but there are two other big changes here. The first one, of course, being the standardization of the eyes. One of the big reasons I wanted to redo this series was because still kind of caught between trying to transfer like the more like anime style Zelda faces into a minifigure form, just like what they did in the Clone Wars, and I fell for the bug eye trap. So this newer version definitely feels more like a traditional figure's facial expressions. And the second big alteration is not actually the shadows. That was exclusive to this research outfit, is actually the color scheme. Back in Wave 1 all the way up until got to be end of Wave 3, I was using just my best approximation for the Lego colours before getting myself a colour palette. Don't know why I bothered waiting so long. It's a really easy thing to do. But it brings this figure in line with the official Lego colour scheme, and it looks so much better for it. Now, this figure originally did use this hairpiece. This is the same hair that was used on Sally from Disney Series 2, but also then on Phoebe Buffay in the Friends apartment set. And the reason for that was because I wanted to limit myself on a couple of new molds, which seems silly to do in a CMF series. Obviously, the biggest development recently is that this figure will be appearing in the Great Deku Tree and looks completely different. So I'm looking forward to comparing those when I have them in hand in a couple of months. Let's move on though to the second figure, and another big reason that I wanted to remaster this series, and that is Nabooru. And you've been seeing our old version on screen now, and it's a little bit of a yikes, isn't it? Did not translate across well from Ocarina of Time to Lego minifigure form. So let's show you that update. And again, she's stayed relatively the same design wise. So we've got the pink legs, the dual molded arms with the pink at the bottom and the newer flesh tones at the top. Again, taking use of that new advantage or that new thing that's come into Lego over the last couple of years, being the newer groups of skin tones. We have the same headpiece that we used in Wave 4's Gerudo Fortress, but also on Nabooru all the way back in Wave 1. And this is the Unagami hair that was introduced in Ninjago in 2020 in the Prime Empire series, and I've seen a couple of sporadic uses since then. And being one of the 6 Ocarina sages, we made sure that she also had a 2x2 tile with her sage medallion on it, and these appeared not only in this series but in series 2 and in an upcoming set until we will eventually have 6 of them. Now, you may notice on a couple of these figures today that the remasters are still a little bit wonky, and I thought I didn't want to lose all the original charm from this series, despite figures like this needing a drastic update so that they can fit in with the newer versions of the character. Nabooru here in particular would have looked really out of place with the new Wave 4 Gerudo that appeared in the Gerudo Fortress set, and I really wanted her to be able to mesh with those and show the connectability of all these different sets over a long period of time. So therefore it was another big reason why I wanted to redo this series. But you'll definitely notice a little bit of wonkiness, maybe some odd perspectives, or some lines that don't quite match LEGO minifigure proportions, and that is because to try and maintain the original charm of this series, I traced all the figures. I did no new studio outlines. Now, some of you might think that's lazy, but in my head, it was actually an attempt to keep some of the authenticity of the original series alive, given that I probably won't be using these images for anything other than nostalgia at this point. But yeah, that was just my opinion of it. There are a couple of updates, I've cleaned up some lines, but the actual wonkiness and poses were not redone in any way, so these were all based off this original trace layer with a couple of modifications. Next up we have Darunia though. He is of course the Fire Sage, and he has his Sage Medallion on a 2x2 red tile. He has a newly moulded headpiece to suit his facial expression, and unfortunately the biggest change here is not just the colour but also the fact that we've lost his purple eyes to bring them again more in line with minifigure stylings. I'm still split on how I think Gorons would work in an official LEGO minifigure sort of playset theme. I do think the moulded heads with normal bodies and then maybe the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle shell is probably the best solution. However, I know before some of you have suggested brick built ideas, or like using different limb coordination pieces or even big figures, but for a CMF series it's usually always a minifigure body, so that's what we have here. Next up we have Tingle, who has also seen a nice big change, the biggest difference here being the change in eyes. Everything else stayed pretty much the same, but this is another great example of a quality upgrade. The headpiece that he was given, like the exclusive pointed ear cap piece, I rammed it out the ears a little bit, and this wasn't just to change the shaping or anything. This was because obviously LEGO doesn't tend to have sharp edges. They like to round off their corners, as we see with all the hair pieces and things, so just to make things a little more accurate, he's got some pointed ears. And for those of you wondering about stability, the hat piece does continue over the back of the head, so it's just kind of like, well, like the existing elf piece where it raises up on the front. So it's not that these ears would be fragile or anything, because they have the back of the head supporting it. As a side note, there was a wonderful city minifigure a year back that would be great for a purist Tingle in yellow. Yes, it would be the yellow flesh tones, but I do have the hairpiece along with the elf hat, so I'm going to be looking for a torso to complete my my new purist yellow skinned Tingle. The rest of his printing is fairly simple. He's got the paintbrush with black, some printing on his legs, and of course on the torso as well with his rotund belly, which is a detail I'm surprised they didn't add in the original. But again, another huge upgrade, although I think the first one is funnily cursed in an interesting way. Next up we have Chic. This one was an interesting figure to remaster because I did some strange things on the original. Not only is the face print being changed, so we've got the hair again still printed on the face, but we've also got the bandana hairpiece just as before from the Clumsy Guys CMF series, and then the ninja wrap on the bottom. Same torso printing and leg printing, and holding the harp as an accessory. Mostly what changed with this one was the facial expression and just cleaning up the aesthetics on the harp, because well, it wasn't very good on the original. To clarify with that part, it's dual molded between clear and yellow. It's not hollow with strings, it is just like a transparent plastic with printing on. Next up, bringing us to our sixth figure, is Tetra. Again, not many changes here, just making use of the newer batches of LEGO skin tones, mid-legs, pistol, and a 2x2 map print representing the piece that's on her room, on her pirate ship, which shows the location of the 3 triangle islands and what will be the Tower of the Gods. She has her same moulded hairpiece, but again, similarly to Tingle, I've buffed out the corners, tried to make it look like it actually fits on a LEGO minifigure head instead of just being very, very cursed. And once again, standardized eyes and a very simple toonified torso print, similar to what we did with the Spirit Train. Again, she was another one that really needed an upgrade to make her fit with other figures, but Toon Link from Wave 1 also needs that as well, so one day. One with a major update, but also not that much of an update at the same time, we have Skull Kid wearing Majora's Mask. This one was brought in line with the Wave 3 Skull Kid by changing the brown colour for the dark orange, which is the version we use for Skull Kid without the mask. Some of you may be wondering why I'm still using the old fairy design now that the Great Deku Tree is out and has shown us that they will be using a 2x2 dish with a stud in the middle. That is because this is my version of events, so I wanted to keep it consistent with the stuff I did, and I don't want to make these large retcons based off what LEGO's doing. I want to continue with sort of my version of the timeline in a weird way. So the mask actually does detach, but there is no face underneath, keeping the head instead as a black piece. This helps to obviously maintain the fact, or the reason why we gave Skull Kid without mask his own figure in Wave 3 as well. The hat piece is here, same as before, and again the colour scheme has just been refined to dark orange and olive green. Next up we have Fi, our 8th figure in this series, taking us to halfway. She remained relatively unchanged from her original version, with her colours staying identical, still using the chicken wings as I believe it's the closest one. Some people would argue the shark wings, but I disagree. It means she can't hold anything, so she has no accessory, and I think she's one of the ones that's really noticeable that I didn't update any of the line work, apart from making them more fine, although they did all get new outlines. Her face print is simple because it was actually already in the minifigure style, just again with no pupils. She's got the diamond on her forehead and this hair mould, which was also used on the Great Fairy in Wave 1, and then later in other versions of figures, including Girahim from the 3rd battle with him. So this hairpiece was one I designed for Wave 1 of the showcase and has been reused ever since. Number 9 gave us Beedle. He has 2 accessories, a 1x1 Technic ball with some printing to represent bait, and a recolor of the sack in pink with some printing, similar to other CMS series that we've seen, to represent the bait bag itself. His printing also got a large update. He has his newer hair mold, which is just sort of just like solid hair. There's really no texture to it. A face print without a nose. I do lament the loss of a nose, but it is just more accurate this way, and to be honest it does feel more like a Lego minifigure now. He's got the freckles on his face, his very like malnourished body using the ribs, and then some shorts on his dual molded legs with his bug symbol. He has some sandal printing because this is a CMF and they tend to have a lot of printing where possible, but otherwise this is a fairly simple figure. And as you'll see later, when I chose to cut the series down from 16 figures to 12, he was one of the ones that did get cut, along with the others you'll see later. The Link variant in this series made up our 10th figure, and he was representing the magic armor from Twilight Princess. I believe this was a great choice for a CMF series because he was, well, it's an armor variant that we never really see in normal retail sets. He also gave us a Hylian shield print as well as a normal sword, as I did not do a master sword print or mold for Wave 1, although that probably is a bit of a strange choice given that in CMS series we get new molds all the time. His headpiece was actually new because while it used the same basis as the original Wave 1 hair mold, it did have the crown jewels on the front, therefore using up that new mold budget for a CMF. He actually has the same face print as the other Links, but the big difference being that this time I made the shoulder armor more pronounced because I don't know, I just couldn't draw it back in the day, and the print was kind of cleaned up and simplified. But I actually really like the colour balancing on this figure now. Don't know why it wasn't like this before, but it's much better now. Our 11th figure goes to Impa from Skyward Sword, another figure that I thought would have been hard to include, at least in this specific outfit, in a set. She also had some pretty major updates, mostly around her accessory, which is like a custom mold for a Gate of Time, or a miniature Gate of Time. It's about the same size as the 3x3 tile, but it has a stud on the back in the centre, so you could sort of lay it down or have it propped up. Of course, it is a miniaturized version of the prop, but it just was something to give her. They've done weird stuff like this before, so why not, even though it is a very strange inclusion. The other big changes here were just her standardization into the other minifigure lines, so her eyes, her mouth, and I still chose to print the braid on her head, as I think that is the best way of representing it and giving her the normal comb over hairpiece. Some dual molded arms, and then some dark blue on the torso and legs as well. But yeah, that opalescent color really adds a lot to the Gate of Time print, and it was a bit of a pain to remaster, but I really like how it turned out. The 12th figure though was the Phantom suit from Phantom Hourglass, and then in Spirit Tracks, mostly the Spirit Tracks version, although the shield is more representative of when they're hunting you in the temple in Phantom Hourglass. This was actually a figure that probably needed the remaster the least, mostly because the original was one of my better ones that I drew, wow, period, until about Wave 3 or 4 when I actually started to try and improve my drawing skills. So this model actually features a unique helmet, pretty similar to some ones that were introduced in the later stages of Nexo Knights and so on, but it is a brand new mold. There's a black minifigure head underneath with 2 white dots to represent the eyes, and then the normal bullhorn piece can actually sit into the sides of the helmet, which is what is represented on top. We have the same shoulder armor piece that was seen on the Magic Armor Link, just from a different perspective here, and we've got 2 arms with some simple printing, some torso printing, and then just some leg printing as well. But my favourite part of this one, besides the overall look of the figure, has to definitely be the 2x3 printed tile for the shield that they carry as well. No sword in this figure, but yeah, again, another one that fits the CMF brief really, really well and covers a whole like a group of the Zelda games that we really don't get that much love for. 13th figure was Demise from Skyward Sword, another one who really can't have a set on his own, thanks to the fact that he only shows up at the end of the game and it's only for a boss fight in an arena that doesn't have many features to it. He makes a perfect choice for a CMF series. Now, unlike not getting Master Sword, we did get a Demon Sword, or the Dark Master Sword in this series, again compounding on the weird logical choices we made back in Wave 1. But this sword is here in gunmetal grey with a little bit of dark red printing on it. We're reusing the Hades hairpiece because I think it's a really cool piece. I know it originally debuted on Ghost Rider, but here it is again on Demise with a dark bluish grey head, new minifigure eyes that match the style again as consistently, and then the same head wrinkles and damage spot on his forehead. To make the chest more accurate, I got rid of the white highlights, instead opting for a gradient or sign of a glow effect because it does seem to be more what it's like. And I also cleaned up the metal definition and the scales in a new style that is more accurate to the game. He still has the printed cloth sort of waist cape. I could have done this as an actual piece of cloth, but again I decided that I thought this was more accurate to LEGO's current design choices. Maybe I'm wrong. And then of course he has his toe printing as well. I really like this figure. It's a big upgrade, and I'm really pleased with how it came out. We only got 3 left to take a look at, and we have number 14 here, which is Midna. Midna here in her imp form. She is mostly benefited by the colour schemes and making sure that I'm using the right colours for her. So she is using aqua, black and dark turquoise for the twilight markings. She has the same moulded headpiece. You'll again notice the rounding on certain shapes just to make it again more accurate to a LEGO style, and the new LEGO minifigure eye as well. She has a Mirror of Twilight print, which has been upgraded slightly because I was less lazy this time around, at least in some ways, and is a great figure to have. Again, she works really well on the set. Now she probably would appear in other sets. She feels like one of the few figures in this series that would then cross over into other sets, but what do you know, you never know what they might do for LEGO Zelda. Next up we have Macau, our penultimate figure. Again, he didn't need too much of a remaster, but it is nice to see him with cleaner, less shaky lines and a little bit more of a robust detail here. Skill kept the same build for the fish guitar, which is a 1x6 bar with 3 traffic signs with prints clipped onto them. 2 of those prints are identical, although they might not look it. We have a yellow waist, which looking a little small there, and some simple printing across both the torso, arms and legs. A new head mould that I'm sure will be reused on other Zora characters, and just a simplification of the Zora eyes, trying to bring them more in line with the minifigure style, as you know by now. The last figure in this series was Phantom Ganondorf from Ocarina of Time, and again he needed the update but not super much. He has a new sort of clip-on mask piece which actually attaches to a motorcycle helmet in red, and then he has some great torso, dual molded arms and leg printing. His staff is built with a 1x4 bar with the minifigure Ninjago shuriken piece on the front. The stud connector on that is facing backwards where it's attached to a 1x1 square clip, and has the pointy piece coming out the top, and then the two ball helms come out of the top 2 connectors on this Ninjago piece. So that's how that works. I really like that build still. It comes across really well forward Trident, and I think it works quite nicely. So that was the original 16 figures, but as I mentioned, from this original version I had to cut it down to 12. So the 4 figures that got cut were Wind Waker Beedle, Sheik, Fi and Tetra. Beedle and Sheik were cut because I think they could appear in other sets as just normal figures, such as Wind Waker sets and then Ocarina sets, including other DTCs. Kind of the same is true for Tetra. They all felt fairly usable, and Fi was just kind of drew a short straw. She felt like she was the most retail set friendly, but also I don't really see a set appearing her in, getting her in it, so maybe she would have to come with the 18+ Hylian shield or something like that. But regardless, that leaves the 12 figures in the series moving forward as Magic Armor Link, Impa, Darunia, Demise, Skull Kid with Majora's Mask, the Phantoms, Tingle, Midna, Phantom Ganon, Nabooru, Macau, and Breath of the Wild Zelda. You could argue that Breath of the Wild Zelda should have been cut, but she was too iconic to that first series, I couldn't do it. And that leaves us with the distribution of 36 figures, 3 figures each in the bag versions, or now that we're in box times, it would be 2 figures per box, giving us a total of 24. So here was the original group shot back with the old art, and here is the upgraded group shot with the new 16, and here's that same shot with just the 12 figures now. 16 to 12 really does make a big difference, but the reason I'm showing you the 12 one is because obviously Series 2 came out after the 16 to 12 figure drop, so 12 figures were only ever drawn from this series. Just quickly running through them, we have the Twilight Princess Darknut, Ilia, the Queen Fairy from Wind Waker, Ravio, Skirvo, Vati, Ruto and Saria, the 2 extra sages, bringing our total to 4, Linebeck, Anju Cafe, and Medley with Makar. Again, another 12 figure series that was released in Wave 3. So let's take a look at those box arts. You've been seeing them throughout the video, but here is the new 60 figure box, back in the old style with the packets, with the, well, 60 packets worth of 16 figures in a sense. Here is that check sheet for those 16 figures. I've never done check sheets before, I wasn't too fussed on doing it, but yeah, there it is. Here is the 2 series in their 36 box form, so this is when we dropped from 16 figures to 12. but we still had bags between 2021 and 2023. You can see the boxes got thinner with only 2 rows, and as I mentioned, only 36 instead of 60 bags per box. And both series are in line here, so this was kind of cool that they're consistent with each other. And here are the 12-figure tech lists for both series. Again, looks a little bit cleaner, I think. And then the newest iteration is, of course, as of late 2023, we moved over to boxes, starting with Marvel Series 2. So again, here are the 2 series, still with 12 figures each, but here they are with their new box canisters and, of course, the actual blind bags themselves. I chose to put 8 characters on the front, which is pretty consistent across other series, but that's good. And I have 2 more images that are related to this, because we have this shot, which is kind of like the shot they use on the website to display it when you're just trying to buy one through, say, like an online store or something. They show you the box up in the corner to say that you only get one, and they show you this kind of stack of characters. So here's the one for Series 1, and here's the one for Series 2. Again, 12 figures per series. So to finish off this chill look at, well, both series in a sense and the remastered version, I want to talk about a couple of group shots. But before I do, I just want to remind you guys that over on the community tab last week, or 2 weeks ago, or 3 weeks ago, I don't remember how long it was, I asked for suggestions for a fan choice CMF. That's right. While there are 3 CMFs planned for the custom set showcase, I decided on stream that we were going to do a brand new one for you guys, and all 12 figures, or potentially more, will be chosen by you guys. Now, this is not that video, so for those of you that suggested ideas on my community post already, very much thank you. If you have any ideas for other figures, please do leave them in the comments section below. This will be my last place to check before we lock down the figures. Now, you won't be seeing this series for a while because figures like this take a while to draw, and we have plenty of other custom sets to do, but I have promised that I will do it before the end of the year. At the moment, it's looking like I may accept 20 figures, but the rules are that they can't have already appeared in a set, and I don't have them planned for a custom set in the future. Now, obviously, you guys don't know who I've got planned, so feel free to leave your suggestions down below, and I have been replying to every comment that suggested one, telling you whether the figure is counted or not. If we end up with an exorbitant amount of figures, because we're already over 20, I think, we will be running some vote brackets as well on the community tab. So keep an eye out over there to make sure that you guys vote for your favourite figures to make it into this series by the end of the year. So sorry if any of you thought this was that was this video, but no, that's coming soon. So let's take a look at these newly updated figures rightfully in their places. And as I mentioned, this was a huge reason for doing this remaster of Series 1, was because I just couldn't put them next to the newer figures. Specifically Nabooru here, we finally got her Gerudo tribe in the Gerudo Fortress set in Wave 4, and it would have been a real shame to have her a standard where she just really couldn't join them, and it would have looked really, really sad. So here is the new Nabooru with her Gerudo guards. It's a great lineup. I'm glad that this collection is sort of complete. If you bought the CMF in Wave 1, you would then have her for the Wave 4 set, or this might encourage people to go back and get her. I've done this a couple of times across the series, most notably again here with Ilya from Series 2 and the Resistance and Telma. I think I've shown you guys this before, but just in case not, here it is. So here are the 4 Resistance members that came in Wave 1 in the Castletown People Pack. Telma appeared in Wave 2, and then it was a case of, well, here is Ilya in the second CMF series to complete this kind of lineup, and it's good to have them all together. Similarly, the Sages will soon be complete, because not only did we have Nabooru and Rodania in Series 1, but we had Saria and Ruto in Series 2, and the remaining 3 are on their way in a Wave 4 set. I think you guys can guess which one. We also have Darunia joining our other Wave 8 Gorons from Tears of the Kingdom. They don't quite match because they're kind of different designs, and currently Darunia is the only one with a molded head. So that's interesting thought nonetheless. And then lastly, we have Skull Kid with the Majora's Mask next to Skull Kid without the Majora's Mask. Very similar posture. In fact, I think I literally may have traced the Wave 1 version of this actually. That's really interesting actually. I didn't realize I'd done that. So they look identical, which is good. And we also have here Sheik next to her alter ego, who you haven't seen yet, but again, she's coming in a Wave 4 set very soon. But yeah, really cool. I'm really glad I did this. I've been trying to work my way through Wave 1 and upgrade things where possible. I know I still got to do the dungeon video as well, but now with the Water Temple remastered, I think it's about time that I just sort of give Wave 1 those touch-ups, or at least re-release the videos with some brand new renders, because those videos are really unwatchable, and it is an important part of this showcase nonetheless. So I think I'll get around to that eventually, but in the meantime, stay tuned for next week, because next week we are doing the polybag for Wave 8 Our Tears of the Kingdom Wave. This is Our Tears of the Kingdom polybag with an exclusive minifigure. I promise that video should be under 10 minutes, although that's never been my goal here on the channel. But with that all said and done, have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you again next week. Bye bye.